listeners, and welcome to High Tea Mystique with your hosts, Kat.
And I'm Tess. And Pam.
In a world changing faster than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea,
High Tea Mystique reminds you that no experience is too big or too small to teach us something about ourselves. So join us for a cup of tea as we steep into adulting, womanhood, independence, and more.
There were so many teas, like different kinds at the spice. I forget the name of the place all the time. The spice market at Disney Springs.
I think it's Spice Road.
Spice Road. I always forget that they have an actual tea selling booth inside. And you can pretty much like test out the teas that they sell before you buy them.
But you have to go inside.
Yes. Yeah, that was something that like my friend was telling me when I went in, because I had asked her like, please, I want to go and find teas for our podcast. And she noticed at the last second the tea booth or the tea, I don't even know what to call that shop, the actual tea serving shop. And she had mentioned like, why didn't they put that outside so people could actually know that it's inside there? Like, I didn't know it was there. I almost missed it, and we were inside, and I was like, that's a good point. But
yeah.
oh
well. Yeah. That makes me think of, I just sent us, like right before we started recording, the local tea company JoJo that we haven't featured on our podcast yet, but we will soon. And apparently JoJo now is doing like Friday and Saturday night late night tea rooms. And so you pay $27 and it's all the tea you want all night.
Oh,
And I know, I'm like, wow, we really need to go to this because this is totally our vibe. And it's like with music and stuff like that. So you just hang out and you have tea until late night.
I love that.
Yeah. And like the teas that they serve are so lovely and traditional, and the majority of them aren't flavored with anything aside from maybe like one other, like a flower or something like that, aside from a chai blend. So it's a really good, like it's great quality tea. Love JoJo.
And do they also sell like little snacks or pastries or to enjoy
Yeah, I
with the
think
tea?
that I don't think it's at their tea room. I think they're hosting somewhere else. Yeah, we'll look into it and post more details.
Yes.
So that our
I definitely
locals,
want to know more.
our local listeners and us can all go to a tea party.
And
Every
those
Saturday.
visiting us can do it as well.
Wait, it is at their spot. Yeah, they're just going to be open late night because they have a tea room for the company that's open in the daytime, which is also where they sell their tea from. So yeah, I guess they're doing late night things on Saturdays now. Super cool. I love that. That is the movement. That is tea movement.
That is tea movement. High tea. High tea for the win.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I guess we'll start today's episode because that feels like a good point to start. So welcome everybody to this very exciting return to some previous topics that we have had before on this podcast. But before we start, I did want us, for those of you that can see us with the video, you may notice that this is a virtual recording. And so we each have our own teas tonight. And I'll just go ahead and start with my tea. So I am currently at a hotel for a conference for work. And so I just brewed the tea that was in my room. But it is an organic chamomile. And I thought it would be a perfect way to kind of unwind from the day and relax and loosen up some tension because I have a lot of personal things that are going to be coming up that will make me very busy. I feel like I really needed this chamomile tonight. And that's what I'm drinking. What about, let's go to my left. No, my rights. This is always a fun game.
The Zoom
To
exposed.
my rights with text. What you
I
got,
Incredible.
hope,
Sis?
yeah, I hope for those of you watching video, you enjoyed that.
And if you're not, you should.
You
Yeah, you
should
should
be.
tune in on YouTube,
It's quite a
Spotify video.
show. I was actually mentioning this off camera a bit before we started recording to Pam and Kat. Ironically, I feel like we all went a very calm route today. I'm drinking chamomile in a in a mug that my coworker gave me, and I love it so much. It's a cat, the bow tie, and
What
he's
a
good
dapper young
company.
fella.
Very dapper, very dapper. Good company, housing my tea very well. And yeah, it's it's a Twinnings chamomile. I don't actually know if it's organic, but I can tell you it's from Twinnings. And it's come out today, and hopefully it'll work its magic for us.
Not sponsored, but we're manifesting a future
Not
sponsorship.
sponsored, but
Mm.
Twinnings, if you're out there, this is a
They have
good
so many
choice.
teas.
Yeah.
I do love their peach and orange iced. It's good. It's very good.
And now we go to my actual left this time.
Hey.
My brain had to process a little bit because, we're married.
I love it. So I have another herbal tea, more or less herbal. This is a rooibos. I've been vibing with rooibos teas lately. I've also been on and off with my left leg, and I'm not injured, but I am definitely feeling some strain. So probably is an injury, honestly. Um, but nothing I can't run on. Just I've been noticing, like a little bit more soreness. So I'm trying to prioritize my recovery more. So one of the easy ways to do that is by having a rooibos. So this one specifically is actually called a fitness herbal tea blend, which doesn't mean much aside from the fact that I got it at a farmer's market, um, here in Miami at Vizcaya. And that was the name of the tea blend, but I noticed that it was a rooibos. It had a really beautiful like note of cinnamon, but it also has lemongrass, so it's this like almost acidic spice, and it's really good. And this is not as warm anymore after our pre-episode discussion. So I would say that it actually tastes really nice, like lukewarm, probably iced too, because I of the lemongrass. I think it's a nice note. And I mentioned too that I feel like the chamomile tea that the ladies are having, if it's 100% chamomile, then it's just the flowers. But a lot of like wind down tea blends have lemongrass in them. So something about it too is just like naturally soothing.
I also feel like lemongrass as a cooking ingredient, just like the smell of it. I feel like I'll smell lemongrass that is steeped for either a broth or something like that. And I feel my energy and my soul just like start healing and start rejuvenating. I don't know why. It's just that
Yeah.
smell. It's so good.
Yeah. And
Lemongrass soup. Don't sleep on lemongrass soup.
and lemongrass scent from Mrs. Myers. The lemon, oh no,
Oh,
it might be lemon verbena, but it's lemongrass that is in it. Incredible scent. Like
Oh,
so, like so gorgeous. Like I could just smell that on everything all the time, always. That's my house,
everything
Love,
everywhere all
love,
at
love that
once.
scent. Yeah.
Lemongrass, lemongrass, lemongrass. Well, thank you, ladies, for on my both ends sharing
Cheers.
your teas. Cheers, cheers, cheers. You too,
Cheers.
listener. Cheers to you.
Cheers. Oh God. Okay. Okay,
Our
background.
God Sib. Um, so for today's episode, I wanted us to kind of revisit a series that we've done before on this podcast. And that's where we kind of dive into a tarot card. And so this idea came to me, in the shower, as some of the best ideas do. And I really felt that this would be a good opportunity to review this card. Um, because as I was thinking about like what could we do this episode about, this episode, we're getting closer to Thanksgiving. It's a month of a lot of gratitude and reflection. We're getting towards the end of the year, but I feel like we have done quite a bit of reflecting recently in some of our episodes, and so I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a different spin. And so that made me really excited for the card that we're going to go over today. And so the card that we're going to do is going to be, let me make her bigger, the Fool card. So the Fool card is definitely a card that has popped up for us, in many a tarot read. And before we start and really dive into the meanings and some of the teachings that this card can have for us, I would like to try and keep some of the spirit from the last episode. So, Kat, if you would be so willing, just based off what you see, I feel like you've heard me talk about this card a lot, but if there's anything else that you notice that I feel could help add some more insight for us today, as you kind of look at the card, and maybe think about some of the things that you've heard me talk about, if there's anything different that stands out to you, or even something now as you're looking at it in more detail, um, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. The pressure's on. No, I'm just kidding. I know that I am fixed. What am I? I'm the variable
You
in this
are.
experiment.
You are. We're sorry, Kat.
Um,
We're sorry.
no, no worries. Also, I just want to say that before I analyze this card, I earlier mentioned that lemon verbena contains lemongrass in it. I was so wrong. They are two separate plants,
Ah,
two completely separate plants. They are often considered by many to have the same taste, but they are two separate plants. Moving forward. So when I look at the Fool card, and I definitely do remember a few things that you've mentioned about this card, Pam. So I would say that um, something that I think is interesting is that if I were to look at the direction that the Fool is looking in, it seems like they're looking away from both the sun and, if that might be a moon in the distance, I'm not sure, directly above center. Um, and I definitely notice how close the Fool stands to the cliff, which would show that they are on the edge, but have no sense or care of looking towards it or seeing any obstacles ahead. Um, it looks like too that the animal that's there at the bottom, which is a dog or a wolf, um, is not being listened to, but is clearly trying to like make contact with the Fool. And I also just noticed that the Fool's bag is so small, which, if they're on a journey of their own, is like, I guess it's wise to travel light, but it doesn't look like it's actually carrying anything that they might need inside of it. And um, they just don't look like they're dressed for where they're at, like they're dressed more for what they feel good in and what they look good in and feel their best. But it's not according to what's around them, like it doesn't show like it's providing much protection and much aid. It doesn't look like it's going to keep them warm when they get over to those snow-capped mountains that are in the background. And it's just kind of winging it, just taking it one step at a time, it looks like. And almost like the Fool is kind of dancing, like kind of dancing and singing and celebrating, which is, I guess, an admirable quality. Like you can definitely say that this person looks very optimistic and very bright minded, and lighthearted for sure. Um, I don't know why it also kind of looks a little like I'm afraid for them, and I don't necessarily know if the journey that they believe they're going on is the journey that they will end up having. And yeah.
Thank you. I loved everything that you said, and I was typing a little bit to take some notes. So I think you did a great job, like explaining it. If for those of you listening, if you're starting to learn tarot, and if you hear like a little thing in my mouth, I'm sorry, I'm sick and I don't want to cough in the microphone, so I'm sucking on a cough drop. But a lot of the descriptions of the card pretty much hit the nail on the head in terms of what you said, right? It's the idea that there's this fool who's on the edge of this cliff and he's not really paying attention to where he's going to go, and he doesn't even realize he's about to fall. And there's a dog that is trying to warn him, and he is just so, I guess, blissfully ignorant that he's not even listening to it. And I really did like and found it interesting that you said it was like a dog or a wolf, because our previous episode, the moon card, right? The same concept comes up. It's a canine. And so the fact that you mentioned both, I think it's also a nice little homage to our previous episode, because it's this idea, right, of the battle between instinct and what you know. Because in the moon card, when we talked about it, it's a dog and a wolf, right? So think of like the wild version versus the tame domesticated version. So I loved that you mentioned it could be either or, right? That's kind of jumping at us and trying to warn us. And another thing that I really liked that you said, right, is that the fool looks unprepared, like that he's carrying a very light bag with him. It doesn't look like it needs all the supplies that he needs. Even the clothes that he's wearing doesn't seem to be fit and very appropriate for it. And that you said you're not sure what journey he's going to take, but you don't think he's prepared for it, or if it's going to end up being the journey that he thinks it's going to be, right? And I feel like all of these things, excuse me, are very true to the energy of the Fool card. Before I continue, I did want to tap into Tess, and if there's anything else that like you want to contribute in terms of your own personal knowledge of the Fool card, or anything else that you notice in the card visually that you want to point out, or anything that Kat said.
Yeah, I definitely want to start off with what Kat said about being afraid for them, because 100% I always feel this, no matter where it is in the spread. Whenever somebody pulls a fool card, I am kind of afraid for them. I'm afraid that there's this level of uncertainty that's happening. And honestly, maybe that's a bit of my anxiety is being projected onto the card. I don't like uncertainty. I don't like change. That's just me. I'm a Libra, and that's all I can do. And I think the Fool is definitely a reminder that there are things you must leave in the hands of forces you can't control. And this isn't a sentencing, right? This isn't a punishment. This is actually part of who we are and how, honestly, we lived the very earliest years of our lives with no control and, all-encompassing faith, right, in our environment and those that were in it. And that's exactly where the Fool brings us back to. It's kind of this origin of you and your child, your inner child, and your ability to trust and embrace what is around you, while also embracing things that you may not be able to see, right? And those of us that we like certainties, like myself, and we like the tangible realities, this is a really difficult card, right? This is a card that kind of tells you won't be able to see it. You won't see it coming, but you need to trust that no matter what, you're going to be okay, right? Especially in the upright position, because we haven't talked about reversed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was funny because when you were saying the fact that you also felt scared for them, I had that same thought, like that's so interesting because I have the complete opposite feeling, but I know that you're not so keen on change. And then you said it, so I was like, yeah, there it is. And it's true, right? Like one of the things that I think I really love about what the both of you said is this idea that there is so much unknown, right? Like this is such a small snippet of what we see in this full card. Who knows if right underneath where literally it says the fool, there's another ledge literally right there, We have no idea of that. Maybe the fool knows and that's why they're not worried. But at the end of the day, it is the fool's journey to take. And one of the things that I also liked that Kat said is that it looks like they're taking it one step at a time. And I feel like everything that we've been saying, right, are a lot of the teachings of this card, and even just teachings and ways you can analyze when you're giving readings, right, or when you're receiving readings or doing readings for yourself to better understand this card is there's a lot of different ways, right? You've heard kind of what Kat had to say. You've heard kind of what Tess had to say, what she gathered from it, and how her own feelings contribute to the meaning of the card. You've heard what it is that I've had to say, right? And to my experience, I'll even add that I feel that recently, with a lot of the readings that I've given, this card has been coming out a lot and is part of my initial reaction and feeling to when Tess said she is also hesitant and feels scared for anybody whenever this card comes out. For me, it's the opposite because I feel like recently the Fool has been coming up in places where a lot of people need reassurance. They're very afraid to take that leap of faith, to be able to make such a huge jump without being prepared, without having the proper clothing, without having all the supplies that they need, right? And to be able to do something in their lives or take action in the current state that the Fool is in. And I feel like there's a lot to learn from this card. There's a balance with everything, right? I feel like we talk about that a lot. And so with the good, there's also the bad. There will be times in your life when more preparation might be needed. But I feel like as a society, we might err on the side of hesitation and holding back versus trusting our instincts. And so I do kind of want to highlight that aspect of sometimes you just have to trust that it's your journey. And even though you feel like you're not ready, maybe what all you need is like what's in his little satchel, right? And the rose that he's holding in his hand, and the clothes that he's wearing on his body. And if I think on what people consider stories of great comeback or struggle, I feel like a lot of people overcome and start from a place very similar to the Fool, right? From little to nothing. And so I mentioned that to kind of encourage those of us who might feel hesitant, right? Like how you've heard right now, um, to just sometimes trust it, like the dog, sometimes the dog's just, maybe it's a Chihuahua and Chihuahuas will bark at anything and everything. So, obviously the decisions are yours to make, but I think even in how I've talked about it and how I've connected it, how Tess has seen it, um, your personal experiences contribute to your knowledge and how you shape and understand even something as simple as like a tarot card, right? And how we've interpreted the Fool so far. So have some faith in your own knowledge and your lived experience to be able to know what decision is going to be best for you. And I feel like ultimately at the end of the day, that is the kind of energy that this card encompasses, at least for me. It's trusting the instinct. It's that little push sometimes when we have to take that leap of faith. But I also acknowledge that I am an optimist. So just to give you listeners a little detail about me. So, having said all of this, I wanted all of us to kind of think of and share a time when it felt like you were taking a leap of faith or making a decision that felt like the energy of the Fool card. So I'm going to start. Let me understand where I'm at on my. Well, actually, no. Kat started with the. Let's go on my right with Tess.
So I feel like there has been a lot that the Fool card has come up in my life. I think if you were to ask me 4 years ago, maybe 4.5, do you feel like the Fool card resonates with you? I would say yes, because I feel like, in 2020, all the way to now, every year has been a new stretch of faith, and I have felt very taught on how much faith I have given in, and it's stressful for me because I guess I'm just so concerned about things like going wrong, right? And hurting somebody or hurting myself and making things worse, right, than what they were. And I feel like the Fool, when I decided to, move out and, be on my own, there was a lot of trauma surrounded around that decision. And I kind of felt like maybe I'm making the trauma worse by doing this. I thought maybe I'm going to hurt myself even more if I force myself to be alone, right? And I think I'm positive that I was wrong. So there is some good with struggling with the Fool card, and I feel like I have been struggling with this card, this energy for the past 4 years. I was wrong. I was wrong, and I'm glad for it. I feel like a completely different person. In not that I view the world differently or I feel differently about like my friends and my loved ones, but that I'm capable of more. And I don't think I would have been able to come to that point if it weren't for trusting everything that I have in my little satchel and going for it. Because let me tell you, that satchel felt very small and I felt very unprepared and I was terrified. I was extremely terrified. So I feel, that those risks have paid off. And don't get me wrong, just because they paid off doesn't mean that I don't feel them again, because I'm in a period of my life where I have a lot of anxiety about decisions and where I end up and hoping everything goes well and feeling like my fate is in the hands of somebody else, and I hate that. But I don't think I would have. I think the Fool of 2024 in me is much more advanced than the Fool in me in 2020, if that makes sense, right? And I'm extremely grateful for that. Moving out was just one of the Fool moments that I feel. And because this is going to come up, right, in major arcana especially, they basically represent segments of a story, right? And they also represent numbers in a sequence. And the Fool is 0. he is zero. And just like every good story, right? Every good hero always comes back to where they began. So no matter how you grew and what you overcame, you will always come back to zero and find something or somewhere more to grow from. So take this as appreciation, because it's very easy to feel like, oh, I'm here again. I failed myself, right? But it's a trick. You know, you haven't failed yourself. It's that this is the sequence of your story. This is the sequence of life. You will always come back to this point, and you have lived it, and you have survived it, and you have made yourself better for it before, and it will happen again. So that's me and the Fool. Yeah.
Thank you. I love that. I feel like when you said that last part, I'm a gamer, you guys. So my mind went to prestiging when you're playing games, you know. It's like you've beat the game, and then you have to, like, you're technically starting over, but now you have a better rank or better abilities or whatever it is, depending on the context of the game, right? And you know, I like that you brought up the idea of the major arcana and the order of the story. That's what the zero, the moon licking thing is on top of the head. It's the zero. Um, but the last card in the major arcana is also the world card, you know, and the world card represents, and towards not just the last card, but towards the end of the major arcana, there's a lot of cards that come up that indicate, you know, the continuation of cycles. And even throughout the journey and throughout the cards of the major arcana, throughout the story, there are multiple points of references to starting over, you know, to where it seems like um it's the end, but it's not. It's still the beginning, and everything comes together, and it's all just a cycle that keeps going and going. But it doesn't mean that you're not growing. Like, think of an avalanche or like a snowball that will roll down a hill, doing the same movement, but as it keeps getting towards the bottom of the mountain, it's going to be this giant snowball that could crush an entire village, you know? So, yeah, thank you for that, Tess. This time I'm going towards my left. Oh, I did it right. Yes. 2 cats over here.
Yay! Can I send you things?
Can you send
I'm
me
sending
things? Woohoo!
I'm sending Pam a
No.
congratulatory emoji
Yippee!
for those tuning in, because she figured it out. I think that was the third time, right? Third time's the charm.
Okay, I'll mess up again. It's a
It's
cycle. It's
harping in
a
the middle.
cycle. No pressure.
I love this card. I think it's well, I also want to mention, and I'm sure it's not a coincidence, that in Shakespeare, the fool is a very interesting character as well. In fact, many consider the fool to be the wisest character of the play, because the fool comes in and speaks in rhyme, um, which not all Shakespeare is in rhyme. So the fool, unmistakably so, every single time will always speak in rhyme, and is essentially giving you the plot of the play. They'll come in a few times throughout, like prologue, epilogue, sometime in between, and they have long soliloquies that are about a story, and the story ends up being what the play is, you know, like a main theme of the play, or a story, or an entire character's arc. And but no one takes the fool seriously. You know, everyone sees the fool as somebody who, just oftentimes the fool might be the drunk, or an outcast, a pariah, and the characters have no respect for the fool because of where the fool is at in life, you know. And so I connect to the fool, I think, through that, and it's cool to see it personified here, because I think that, again, I think they're absolutely interconnected. I think that Shakespeare knew what was up, and so funny that I thought that that was like, that I took it as a symbol, which shows that, you know, like I was truly analyzing the card. But I love that it's zero, because now knowing that, the word that came to my mind when you asked the question, Pam, was um repetition. And it's because I feel like what the Fool gives me in strength and power is the the support that it's okay to start from ground zero, you know, and the idea that somebody who's tried so many different things, you know, and let's say they've ended up at the place that they want to be, it's with a lot more confidence than the person who took the route that they thought that they always wanted without exploring any other avenues, you know? And so I think that the idea of being a fool at something and, you know, being foolish is because it's really just being a novice, you know, and making careless mistakes because you didn't know what there was to care about yet, you know, and you learn it as you go. And I think anybody can relate when they're starting a fresh career or just a new job in general at a new place. You can have done the job for like 5 years, but now you have to start over somewhere else, and then you feel like a fool because maybe it's a new system, maybe it's a different types of personalities to work around. Maybe there is one new skill set that you need in order to do this particular job. Like I think that we are all fools. And I think that it being zero is very appropriate because we have to be in life, you know? And I guess what it encourages me in is like the personal instance for me lately is like I'm such a non-confrontational person, and I'm more of that like when it comes to confrontation, I have more of a flight response than I do a fight response, right? So as opposed to talking things through, I'm that person who's more of uh if it was meant to happen, it would have happened, and maybe now it's just better this way, you know, and just letting sleeping dogs lie, and you just walk away from a situation, and it's okay that they don't know that this didn't go well, you know, and I can do the same thing with anything. But um I think that this card comes to play with making decisions of like moments that I've had to cut ties, right, with things that weren't serving me anymore. And making the decision to do it while it may have still seemed like I could have easily done it. You know, I think of when I decided to leave the theater company that I was working with because because it was no longer feeding my creative um it was no longer feeding my creative mind, and then it was getting to the point where I felt like I was almost being a disservice to what I could offer, you know. And even though no one may have noticed it to a degree that was worth like me leaving, I made the decision to leave because it was like this isn't perfection, like this isn't the dream of what I want it to be, and I don't see a way for this to get me there. So I think I'm just going to walk away, and I'm going to have to start again from the bottom, but I think it'll be a better bottom, you know, and it'll get me closer to where I do want to be, and it'll look completely different. And I don't even know what it looks like yet, but I know that this isn't doing it for me anymore, you know. And that's why I think it's kind of one of those like you could identify it with something being a like a kind of like a foolish choice, you know, like I really grappled with it. I thought about it for a really long time. But even still in doing it, you know, and making it happen and having to like step away and walk away from something and then have to be a beginner in another way was like I feel like a fool. I feel like I don't know where I'm going. I just felt like I had to go. I don't have anywhere to go. I just had to go. And I think that happens a lot in life, but it happens more and more the more that you do it. And so now I can say it's been a very tough season of like things naturally coming to an end, feeling like you need to wrap up certain things and really take a look at your trajectory and see if the seeds that you've been sowing are growing in the right direction. And so this is that time, you know, of having hard conversations, right? Or choosing not to have the hard conversations and either live in a circumstance that you don't want to be in, or um or you leave the circumstance but then you sever whatever it was that you were building there, right? Because like I said, sometimes I had a tendency to just walk away and not worry about, like walk away and be like, all the time I invested in that, because I just walked away from it, now I get none of it, because of my fear of confrontation, because of my fear of voicing that there was a reason why I wasn't happy in that situation, right? And so now, as an adult, as somebody who values my time and what I do, right, for any avenue, be it passion or work or uh or I guess like relationship wise, and it's it makes you realize the value of having those hard conversations, and that at the end of the day, it's only hard because you knew that there was a possibility of getting an answer that you didn't want. But if you weigh it before you go into the situation, then you take a little bit of growth off of the fool. But you had to kind of start from there, in order to identify what felt good for you. Because that's the one thing that I would say is that it seems like the fool is always happy, like happy to start, happy to be there. And I think that that is a feeling that I get often, when I'm just kind of throwing myself into something because it feels right, or throwing myself out of something because it feels right.
Something I really appreciate what you said, Kat, is your kind of interpretation of, like your flight, right? And your flight response to me is actually really positive, right? It's like, it's not meant to be, it wasn't for me, so I get to walk away from this, right? I think, right? I think I interpreted that correctly.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like me, and in my experiences, if it didn't work out, it was my fault and I failed. And I punish myself, right? And I, create this reality in my head where if I hadn't done this, then it would have worked out, right? So essentially what I'm saying is I want to be you when I grow up. And I want to have that, person, and I've been trying, it's a work progress. There's been many people that have been good guides and and bringing me along this path. But it's, I don't really know where it stems from, other than that's the only control I feel like I had for a long time. If I blamed it on me, then I could make sense of the situation. And the fool is begging you not to grab control of this, not to crave control. It's like begging you to just let go. Like be carefree in the sense that fills you, right, with this like coming back to zero, and not beating yourself up about it, which is what kind of like what you said, right? Feeling good about coming back to zero, right? And I think the fool definitely endorses that, upright fool definitely endorses feeling good about coming back to zero.
Yeah, and I also, now thinking about the lightness of what he carries on his back, is so metaphorical as well, for like when you are living in that way, you feel very light, like you carry no baggage, you live without a filter, you go from one choice to the next, and you feel very light, very free.
I almost feel like, right, I have my two Libras next to me, and this feels like that balance, right? Them trying to balance each other out. Yeah, I definitely think it's a kudos for sure, but I also think there's a warning, right? Because if your reaction is to run away every single time, then you don't learn, right? So that's why I say like the balance thing, because I heard Kat when she like was recognizing that and acknowledging that she has to work on confrontation, but also balancing that with trusting herself to know when to leave, what something that no longer serves her, you know? And what was the thing that you had mentioned? Um, I think it was the idea of like not being, oh, yes, okay. The fact that the fool is not afraid to just do and try, right? Because think about stories, think about people in your life, think about maybe some of the stories that you've heard of successful people. And I feel like in the beginnings of their journeys, almost always there is a criticism to the decision that they decide to do that to everybody else seems absolutely absurd, you know, especially when it's a decision that strays from the normal path that the people around them um, are used to or that they have been taught to follow from a young age, especially when it's a path that strays from the normal societal pathway of expectations, you know, like school, job, whatever it is, especially when it's deviating from a path that you've been on so long. And what I want to kind of highlight is what happens after. You know, I feel like all the time, those people who criticize and sit there and look like, say, like, oh, look at this crazy fool. Think about how long and how much energy they spent critiquing the fool, while the fool just does and fails and gets up again and grows and learns and says, oh, I know not to do that anymore. Let me try this. Oh, this worked a little bit. And then eventually you get to a point which also follows, right? The story of the major arcana where the fool starts growing, the fool starts learning, the fool starts becoming more proficient. And then if you take a look at those same people who would criticize the fool, now they are almost in awe. And a lot of people will be like, oh, how did you get there? I want to get there quickly, right? I want that instant satisfaction, resolution to get to the point that you are at. And these are the same people who, in the beginning of the fool's journey, were criticizing the fool for going without little to any preparation, and or the same people who can't even fathom to take that journey because they have to, you know, make sure they have their whole entire suitcase, and they've spent all this energy just planning and preparing and getting all of this thing, and then they never get to the point of action. They never get to the point of doing, you know. And I feel like that is such an important lesson for this card. And one of the things that you had mentioned, Kat, was this idea of deviation and how sometimes you kind of have to go out, right, to figure out something about yourself, because I feel like that's kind of where my personal experience aligns with this card. Because when I think back to just my life overall and some of the things that have happened to it, um, there have been cycles, right, with relationships, with career, where it's felt like now I have to go in a different direction, or this is finishing. I have no idea where I'm going to go, but it feels like my previous experience was a waste of time and will not be applicable to this future that I'm planning for now, right? Because something didn't work out before. And right now, at this moment where I'm currently sitting, after I'd say maybe 10 years, 10 to 12 years, about that long, um, now is when I'm starting to see how all those previous experiences have kind of built up on each other without me even knowing, to manifest itself into what I have today, right? And so, like, I think a perfect example is my career that I'm at currently, because who knows where it'll be in the future. Um, but my career is like it's instructional design, and it's something that is in education that is very techy and also has a lot with coding and designing in the computer context, right? And I remember way back when there was Gaia Online, MySpace, all of that stuff in high school, playing with um, HTML coding, playing with Gaia Online's version of that, playing with Photoshop and liking like that graphic technological design aspect of that, right? Thinking and preparing, trying to get into a college or university where I could major in graphic design and expand on all of that. And then that never happened, right? And then we move on from there towards my experience in teaching in Japan. You know, like that was something where I took a leap of faith and said, I'm just going to apply for this. It sounds like something I didn't even think it sounded like something I could do. It just felt like, okay, I have to do this. I like Japan. This is the only career option that I think I have right now because I have no idea what I'm going to do with a major in East Asian studies. And so this was just something like, oh, teachers talked about it. Let me try it. I did it. But when I started, I was like, I have no idea about teaching. I have zero idea how to build a classroom or anything like that, how to write lesson plans. And I have to do that with Japanese teachers, But little did I know that one of the things that I liked to do before was help my friends and tutor my friends and learning how to, especially math, how to help them go through that. And that little experience that I thought was insignificant helped me in this one, right? And then fast forward again, here we go, starting from ground zero. I finished teaching in Japan. I come back to the States and I literally feel like I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do with my life. I have no idea how any of that experience in Japan is going to help me or is going to be relevant. Like if somebody asks me for a letter of recommendation or a contact information to call, they can't read Japanese. They can't speak Japanese. Like whose information am I going to give, right? And it feels like such a defeat when you're there and feels very helpless, I think is the word that I want to use, right? Because again, I'm starting from zero. I'm starting from almost nothing when I had these things in Japan, right? Like my own place, my own income, my own car. Now I'm coming back. Okay, I have a car, but I don't have my own place. I don't have a job. I don't have a full-time job. I don't have health insurance. Like starting from zero all over again, thinking, where am I going to go? How is any of that experience going to help me to where I'm at today? You know, discovering a career that I actually genuinely love, working in a place that I absolutely love, doing things and finding out that all of these things kind of came in together. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in between that has happened as well, but that somehow everything came together and it fit. I'm in a place where I can be grateful for all of that learning from starting from zero, from starting from the ground and building myself up again. And right now where I'm at now, even I know that there's potential for me to start all over again with some future plans that I have. But now I'm at a point where I don't feel as scared. I feel very assured in myself and I have confidence in myself and faith in the skill set that I have developed that I feel like I'm like this full, right? People might see me and think, why would you do that? But I know what I can do now. I know what I'm capable of, and I know that I'm going to be okay with that decision that I'm going to want to make in the future. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this card and the beauty of those lessons. And one thing that these experiences have also taught me, and from stories that I've heard from friends and other people, is if you don't learn it, it's going to come back, right? There's going to be other ways for you to learn the lesson that you need to learn in the same ways that the fool will be falling and getting up and falling and getting up and figuring it out. So don't be discouraged. If it feels like an endless cycle, because there are things that you are learning, like I've expressed it, Tess has expressed it, Kat has expressed it. And I think have a little faith in yourself. And I also think that kind of, well, I don't know if it leads us, but I'm going to lead us there to the last part of this episode. which is I wanted to tie back also to this idea of manifestation because I feel like the Fool is the Nike card, right? Like just do it. You just got to go out there, make that first step forward and move forward. And so what I want to ask you ladies is what did taking a leap of faith teach you about manifesting your dream? Because this is something that we had mentioned in manifestation, right? In one of our previous episodes with another podcast. And I kind of want to go back to that because even though we mentioned it briefly in that episode, I would like us with this card and having really dissected it and analyzed it, have us kind of share what those experiences has taught us in terms of manifestation, in terms of how to get something that it is that you want. Because I feel that at the end of the day, this Fool card or this energy will kind of, you know, make itself known in moments when we maybe we're not sure, but we know we want to go somewhere. We just don't know how. But you know that the first step is to just do something, right? So now, okay, I'm gonna go to my left. Yes. If you could share with us,
Oh God.
okay.
Yes, yes, I will. I will. I'm so sorry. Again, I was trying to do the now it's me. Now I'm late. I'm the one that takes too long to figure it out. I sent her another trumpet. Uh, I think that this is such a good time again to be doing this episode and be talking about the Fool card because I feel like this is such a good card for anyone that feels between uh decisions. And I think that it's when it's helped me the most. I think uh I think I have a passion for people and I don't know exactly what that will fully manifest itself into. Um I have different as of right now, where I'm at right now, I have different pathways of achieving success, and what the final point of it all looks like, I think is different. Because I'm still zeroing in. And so it means that I have to kind of try in a bunch of different avenues. But the avenue that's been really calling me the past uh, 2 years is being a leader in wellness, and being an advocate for people to make decisions that make their brain and body happy. And I don't know exactly what the right choices are to make, as far as a career path and where it's best to go. And so it's definitely been a journey of following my gut, and trusting my gut and trying to stay close uh to good people, and people that I know I want to work with and that I enjoy being around. And so I think that that big decision that I made, of switching jobs and um, like speaking to pretty much anybody that was closely associated with that and with my life at that time, um, I got all different types of opinions, and I went, and it was pretty split, on like which choice to make and which way to go, and made me realize that at the end of the day, it was my decision, and no one is going to have to be there every day putting in the work except for me. And it comes down to where I would rather put that. And even though I had no idea what it was going to look like, having this new job, the I knew that the way that it happened upon me was no accident, and I knew that it was closer to where I wanted to be than where I was, and so I didn't know if the experience itself was going to be better, was going to be worse, as far as maybe what the day to day looked like, but I knew that it was going to mean that I was going to get to be in control, which is something that I didn't have before. Before I was a part of a team, but I wasn't in control of that team. And this time it's mine, and then my hope is that now, since I can say that there are things that are mine, where I go from here, who's to say, or where this will take me in and out, it will be mine and I'll have a team, and it'll grow out from there. But I think that ultimately, uh, it was kind of making that like that optimistic choice, saying that the next choice has to be better because it's the next choice, because it's getting me closer to where I want to be, um, has definitely manifested itself as true for me. And I would do it again. I think that this is absolutely a way to get closer to your goals, and it's also a way, I think, of humbling yourself and recognizing that you can't have it all figured out, and that you can have that checklist of ways to get you from point A to point B, but there's still going to come, like, there's still something that's going to come up that you couldn't possibly have been prepared for. And that's going to be on you to make an in the moment decision, and you have to be okay with going through that, because if you don't, then you could throw all of your hard work behind because you were afraid of making the wrong choice, and so you step away. And I think that we do that all the time for things that technically don't matter as much for us, but you wouldn't want it to be enough times that it becomes a habit so that you end up doing that for the things that really matter too. So less of that and more of uh, just going forth and trudging through and making messy decisions, and hoping for the best, always.
So a huge part of manifestation and what you said and what I'm planning to share, and I'm interested to see if it'll come up with Tessa's story. And I also think this is something that shows itself in the story when you go through the minor arcana for the pentacles, right? So manifestation, part of the process, and if you haven't heard our other episodes, go check them out. We go into more detail, but I feel like a lot of people think that people believe it's just willing it into existence, right? You make a vision board, you keep wanting and wanting and wishing, and it'll come true. A huge part of manifestation is putting in the work. And another big aspect of it is almost trusting in the timing, right, of the universe, and being able to see those opportunities to continue moving forward, right? Because I definitely remember when Kat was in this situation, like she had shared it with us. And I knew that she was struggling with the decision, but all I saw, honestly, was the fact that this opportunity was something that came 100% due to the efforts that she has been putting into, whether she knew it or not. I knew that it came because of all of the hard work that she had been doing, and the universe had finally, it saw it, it acknowledged it, and it presented her with the opportunity. And I'm sure the universe is happy that she took that jump and took that leap of faith like the fool. And there's going to be even more blessings that are going to come onto her because of that. But, it's, I think it's important to acknowledge the effort that you put in. I think it's really easy for us to dismiss our own, I don't know if I want to say experiences or effort, because in the moment, I'm sure it doesn't feel that way, right? In the moment, it might feel like maybe you're not sure how these things connect, kind of like how I've mentioned before. But at the end of the day, it's about doing it when you don't know what's going to grow, right? And that's what shows up in the minor arcana for the pentacles. The idea is that from the ace pretty much to the king is the whole journey. The person is working hard and like working on these pentacles and watching. And one of the things that you said, Kat, was like, you don't know what seeds are going to grow, right, from what you sow. And that's a huge part of that minor arcana journey for the pentacles. And so there is a card where after, I think it's maybe the 7 or the 8 of pentacles, where the guy has worked so hard and he's kind of like standing there with his rake and he's looking at what he's planted and it's in the process of growing, but it's not quite there yet. And then all of a sudden you get to this place where everything has bloomed and you're at the 10 of pentacles and there's this lady who's kind of sitting and she's surrounded by all this beautiful blossoming bush of pentacle energy, and it's a manifestation of all the hard work that people do. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, and like highlight it in case you didn't see it. But that's all I saw in that moment, and I knew that she was struggling with it, but I felt in my gut and I knew that that was for her, that opportunity was for her and that it was going to be hers and that things were going to work out because of everything that she had done. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Kat.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. I think it definitely is harder when you're on the inside because I think there are so many factors, especially when it comes to career paths and
Mm-hmm.
career switches. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest aids, I think, is like just having a mentor, and having somebody who's there looking out for your greater good with like more of a perspective of the future and maybe some experience of having made decisions like that and maybe that have gone the right way and the wrong way, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to like tell me like, look, I can go one of two ways, and here's how they both went. So that was really helpful. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was just leap of faith.
Yeah. We should definitely have an episode on mentorship. That's a great one. All right, now I'm going to move on to my right side, to Miss S.
Hello again.
Hello.
Um, as far as manifesting, and which really I think is a question of how do you manifest the success that you want from, being at the Fool spot, right? The Fool is open to all possibility, right? He is prepared for the obstacles that are to come, like the mountain ranges in the back, the cliff edge that he's on, However, right, something that we didn't touch upon, but it is part of the symbolism of the card here, is that the dog that's at the base of the Fool and where he steps is actually a symbolism, or a symbol, I should say, of loyalty and protection. He's encouraging the Fool to go forward, right? That's why he's happy. He has a fluffy tail, and he's, cheering for the Fool and wherever he goes. And to me, I'm going to root that a little bit. And I think a very powerful tool when it comes to manifesting. And I think it's sowing the seeds that you do with the people around you, right? When you speak things in confidence to people around you, there is a power of reality in that. You're scared of something happening, you speak it into existence. There is some fortitude in that. Not just because you spoke to a random stranger, but you spoke to somebody you cared about. This person can see the same thing or my home, like my family home situation. I spoke about that so many times to people around me, and it thrust itself into my life. It wasn't even a choice at that point. I had spoken about it so much that the powers that be just knocked it into my life, right? I spoke about, wanting and really investing, right, in being more independent, right, and being financially sound. And there are situations that have thrust themselves onto me that are forcing me now to be that way. So, and granted, I am somebody who I am so cautious about what like I speak into existence, because I'm like, sometimes if I talk about it, it makes it real and maybe it's not, right? But watch out for that instinct, because if you want to speak it into existence with someone you love and you care about, that could be right. And this is very, ooga booga of me. This is not, this is not tangible items. This is very much me saying your words are spellbinding in ways that you have no idea. And words that you spell to people that you love are 10 times stronger. So if you tell people, or if you don't tell people, that also has some strength in it, right? Because you're the actionable person. You want to keep it to a point where you share the product with the people that you love because it's done. That product has 10 times more power, right? Whichever route you take, whichever type of progress sharing person type you are, it has so much weight when you speak it into existence. And that is, I feel like, a big step in manifesting, as well as all the other pieces that, we shared today. So, if you're thinking about a goal, like, you want to do this, you want to do that, don't be afraid to share that with somebody, but just make sure it's somebody you can really trust with this goal, right? Because I think also sharing with the wrong crowd has power too, that may not work in your favor. So I really, really do believe that, things that you want and you voice that out loud, that's a bit of reality that you just added to the universe that could return itself to you tenfold. So I think for sure that's a big part of manifesting and getting to the point of, that next step after the Fool, right? Going from 0 to 1.
I have a running joke all the time with my mom because whenever we travel with a plane, the first thing in her head is, "Oh my God, this plane. Hopefully, there's no delays." Or she starts fixating on those things, and immediately I'll snap at her and be like, "Why do you say it? Don't speak it into into reality." And she's like, "Well, it always happens." I'm like, "But you always say it. Try one time where you just don't say it. Just try it and see if it happens." And I travel all the time with, I don't say anything. I wait, I see what happens, and I hope for the best. And I don't have half as many of the issues with traveling as she does. And I think, funnily enough, if I do, it never ends up being as bad as hers, you know? So I am also on that ooga booga side. um, and it's part of it, right? And if you feel like, I think an important thing that Tess said is, don't share it with the entire world, you know? Because not everybody is gonna be on your cheer squad.
And it like
And
waters it down, it waters down your power, right?
yeah, like think about people on weight loss journeys or trying to be fit or something, right? You're not gonna tell everybody. A lot of people are gonna criticize that. But what they do tell you to do is to get yourself an accountability partner, singular, right? Someone who can help you and will support you and that you trust to check in with you or maybe go on the journey with you. And Oh my God, the coffee made me forget what it was that I wanted to say in terms of the full card. I think it was that the full card. No, I lost it. That's okay. It wasn't meant to be.
Well,
Um,
if I could interject, I think you have a point where it's like there's a reason why there's only one other item on the journey with the fool, right? And that is his symbol of loyalty and the partner that is most loyal to him and that will protect him, right? As he's on this journey, right? And encouraging him, right? It's loyalty, it's protection, it's encouragement, and there's a lot of power in that partnership, right?
mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I always love hearing your guys' responses when I host because it always, not that it influences is what I'm gonna say in a bad way, but it helps me develop my response. And I had one response ready, but what Tess said made me think of something else. But I'll share both. So for me, I feel like these experiences have taught me to do more rather than plan more and be very aware of when opportunities arise. Because I am definitely somebody who like tries to prepare and tries to plan, and I am a huge, I don't want to say advocate, but it's like a personality defect of planning like 5 years down the line, and a lot of people have to tell me to chill the fuck out. And that's why they have SMART goals, right? The first letter is, what is it? No, one of the letters is attainable, and time bound. And 5 years may not be as realistic as at least 6 months. And I feel like since coming back from Japan, I've always had the want and the need to have like my own home, you know? And for the longest time, I always thought I had to have my finances in perfect working order. I had to save up, and the only way is to kind of like buy a house. It doesn't make any sense to pay somebody else's mortgage, but I want to do it in a way where I can do it with my partner, and just so many different things that I do thinking that it's me preparing, right? And planning carefully. But at the end of the day, a lot of it just inhibits me from being able to achieve the dream that I want to manifest, right? Like I feel like I put in a lot of the work, but there's also that fine line of trusting timing and different ways in which the universe will give you a way to achieve that dream, right? And very, very recently, an opportunity arose where I could have my own home. I could move out of my house. And I remember thinking in the process, like, do I want to do this? Is this going to happen right now? Because, adulting's really hard. And I have a lot of anxiety when it comes to very formal, official legal matters. And the unknown of processes terrify the shit out of me, you know? And this was one of them. There's so many things out there, like filing taxes properly. Like, if I want to start a business, how does that work? But how does it work financially and all this stuff? And, um, you know, now that this opportunity has come and I've been able to do it, and it's happened so quickly, and things have almost, it feels like things have almost fallen into place, and it came from a place of chaos, you know, and the opportunity, even though I say the word opportunity, sometimes it doesn't really feel that way, right? And the full card like really has helped me just say fuck it you know, why not? Let's try. Who cares if it doesn't work out in the long run, right? Because I'm somebody who plans so far ahead. What I know and what I know my truth to be is that I'm not happy where I'm at right now. You know, I love my parents, but I can't. It's hard as much as I keep thinking there's little things that I'm doing to help them and help myself save up for a deposit and all of this stuff. In me preparing for this ultimate goal of having my own dream home, it's kind of what Kat said earlier, right? Like, this is just one step closer to that. I realized that in me being stuck in that preparation of wanting to prepare for the perfect moment, and the perfect opportunity, and the perfect circumstances, where I currently was, and the amount of time that I spent in this space was not happy, not truly. And that it had been like that for quite some time, and that it was affecting my mental health, my physical health, my just motivation for things. It literally felt like, I haven't seen the movie, but is Groundhog Day the one where it's like the same day repeats? No. Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
It felt like Groundhog Day, which I can only say off, the verification of these two Libras right here. But I felt very stuck, and then I took the opportunity to just say, let's just do it. And I reached out, and we're still waiting to see if it gets there. And even though we're not there yet, it feels so close. And I feel already in a place where I feel so much happier and so excited and ready to start feeling like I'm living my life again. Especially because, if you've followed our podcast for a while, I'm sure you've heard our journey, you know that I've been struggling with that sense of home-based belonging ever since coming back from Japan, and feeling like an alien in my own home. And now this feels like, okay, I I can do that. Like, I feel good. Like, I can create the home that I want. And it may not be perfect, um, but at least it's a home. And at least it's something that I can make mine, you know? And to Tessa's point in terms of the the friends and the loyalty and sharing with very specific people, I feel like this would not have happened if I didn't have those people in my life, right? If I didn't have somebody that I trusted so much to be able to do this with, and that person didn't trust me, or that person trusted me enough to agree to move in with me, right? Especially when it seemed like they were in a place of, I'm sure it probably felt like the end of the world, or very stressful, or like a recycling of things. And now it just feels like I'm understanding better, right? The idea of manifestation and what it means to just trust the universe and trust the find, because this came out of nowhere, honestly, right? The timing of it, I thought that um, the original plans was uh, the original plans that this person had was going to fall apart. I mean, was going to go through, but then it ended up falling apart. And I saw that and I was like, okay, maybe this is a good place to do it. And I also made this decision in a moment where I felt very unsure with my life, because I'm trying to move forward with my partner, and I had a specific plan to be able to do that. And even though this step feels like a step back from that one, it's still a step forward from this other plant that I'm trying to grow, right? And so, really, if I think about it, it's not that I'm letting this plant die, it's that this plant has enough water, and if I water it too much, it's gonna drown. So I need to focus on this other thing that has been dying, right? Has been needing some nurturing, some focus, some energy for a while. and I just have to let this other plant grow. Like I've poured the water in. I have to wait for it to keep blossoming and taking the nutrients and all of that. And now I have to cater to this one. And I feel like both of those are going to end up leading to this beautiful bush, this beautiful vegetation, fruit, whatever it is that I'm going to plant. And it's going to feel so fruitful and so fulfilling. And this step that I'm taking is already making me feel a lot lighter, a lot happier, kind of like how we've been mentioning, right? With the Fool. Like, yes, it's very scary, but I'm going to be able to start this journey now. And I'm going to be able to, um, for the time being, be happy, even though I know that this journey also has certain uncertainties. But at the end of the day, it's one step at a time, right? Like what Kat said, one day at a time, one moment at a time. And honestly, we only have one life to live. And it's something that I'm constantly trying to remind myself that I could waste, and I do mean the word waste, all of this time trying to plan for the perfect moment to buy and create my perfect home. And I could die tomorrow, you know? And the reality of me trying to make it perfect or me trying to make it into all of these constraints without living my life is something that I try to really internalize, to remind myself to go for it, to remind myself to just do that decision, make that move. Um, who cares if it feels like it might be a step back when I know that I'll be able to push through and move forward. Again, right? I mentioned it has to be a balance. Don't lean into your vices too much, then you create a dependency. But I think it's a good reminder, right? Even to balance things out and in the same way of the Fool, like you only have one day to live. I'm sorry, one life to live. The sun is out, it's bright and shining in the card. Who knows? Maybe it's one day. I don't know your future.
Plot
Um,
twist.
but
I wish that on nobody. I wish that on no one. Knocks on wood.
none of us do. But you know, the Fool understands that. He knows that. And so he has to live his life. And who cares what anybody says? And who cares if he doesn't know what's going to happen? Who knows? Maybe he'll find a gold mine on his journey over there, you know? And so I hope that this really encourages you to pursue that forward. And I think I'm going to do it. For the first time in High Tea Mystique, I don't feel that we need a tarot read. You know, I think that this card, what we've talked about, has already had so much wisdom. And the reason why I say that and I make this decision for this episode is because the ways in which this card has shown up for me in the readings that I've done very recently has shown up in the same way. And every single time that it's shown up, it's been somebody asking me, how do I know? When do I know it's the right time? And this card pops up. So I will leave it at that. I'm not going to do a read for this episode because I think that this card in itself is powerful enough and is the message itself enough to encourage all of us to just make that move, to put ourselves out there, to be uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, that's the only time that we can grow. Struggle helps build your character. Struggle helps build who you are as a person. And if you're always in the same place, there's nothing, things are just going to reduce. You know, like as you get older, if you don't move and lift weights and tear your muscles, you end up losing bone density. If you sit on a chair the whole entire time, your ass gonna get flat. Okay. So you have to struggle, you have to move, you just have to do it. And I feel like everything that we've said in this episode today, tonight, this morning, whenever it is that you're listening to us, I hope it encourages you. I hope that you really take the time whether it be through this podcast, whether it be Googling it, whether it be if you have a tarot deck yourself, to just sit with this card, the Fool card. I think Kat was right in what she said earlier, where the Fool is actually the character who has the most wisdom, because he's not afraid. He's not afraid to live life, to make mistakes, and to grow. And to me, that's the person who will end up winning, because the whole point of life is to live it, and live it in the way that you want, and live it in the way that best serves you and fuels you and makes you feel your best, you know? So, ladies, I'm sorry for that shock. But is there anything you'd like
Unprecedented.
to add
This is a historic
before we
moment.
close out? I know, I know. We've been very consistent. It's our second season. We're getting to the close of our second season. That's kind of crazy to say,
Yeah.
especially considering, because this was also something that I had thought about talking about, right? Like looking back at some of the accomplishments that we've made, but I feel like the Full card kind of encompassed everything that I wanted to say. And it reminds me of how, at least I don't know about you two, but how I felt in the beginning of wanting to launch this podcast, and like all the, my God, you guys, like we had to re-record this one episode at least 3 times, and we still didn't use it, you know? So, so
Yeah. No, we learned it all.
yeah, and now
And like thinking that we were so prepared going into it, and there's still being so much to learn, and like learn from ourselves and then learn just technically.
yeah, and now it feels like super easy. We have a groove. The guests that we've had, the friends that we've had have been so supportive, and some of my favorite comments have been like, "Oh, you guys are professionals. You guys feel like I've been doing this for a while." I was like, "Girl, no, we just started, and it's we just pick things up along the way." And it feels so good to kind of think about that and hear those comments, because it's like, damn, we did it. We did the thing.
Yeah.
We
I
did
want
the
to
thing.
add to what Tess was saying and then Pam elaborated on. I'd like to give my 2 cents because I just think it's so powerful about what you were saying, Tess, and how you shared uh, you shared what you wanted with so many of your friends that it thrusted upon you. I think that that's very spiritual, and I do think that I think that we're surrounded by angels, those that we can see and those that we can't. And I think that those that we can see are the angels that we create for ourselves. And we don't realize that when we share something that's close to our heart, we're essentially creating an angel, because I think that we all see each other's pure intent, and I think that it's natural to want something for someone, and so when you take it in, you also take it on, right? And so I think that I'm an angel for many people in my life, in the same way that I have my own team. And it's a really beautiful thing, because we are so magical, and we can really make our own dreams come true, because the bigger your community, the more power that you have.
And when you said team, even the idea that, and for those of you who have heard the podcast, you know the story already, but when I had met Kat just to catch up, and she jumped on the opportunity to join our podcast, and look at where we're at now, like there's just so many ways that I can see, even from our podcast alone, and how the Fool has taught us. And I'm so happy you took that jump to just say, I want to be
That's
that
so
part of
cool.
that team too.
I
I
was
love it.
so the fool. I was so the fool. Oh my God. Yeah. I literally jumped. That was the cliff, and that was me.
What about you, Tess?
Just that, I'm really thankful for the angels that, I definitely can see and feel in my life. That's it.
Thankful is a great word to use, no?
It is a
Mhm.
wonderful
Considering
word to use.
considering when this episode is going to be released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, I think for all of us, that also includes you listeners, I can't wait for the day when we get so big, but I will be so grateful and appreciative for these moments when we are small, because I know that the ones that are listening are the ones who really connect to our content and who care and are a part of that circle of angels, who want to see us do well and who want to see us to continue to grow. And for that, thank you. Thank you for listening to us. Whenever you guys say that it resonates with you, and even with some of the tarot reads and the timing of how some of these episodes come up and the topics, I genuinely believe that this podcast is here to serve a purpose, and I'm so happy that it's serving, it's fulfilling, it feels so fulfilling and feels like something that I've been wanting to do for such a long time, and I didn't know how it was going to show itself, and it's manifested itself into this podcast. And I'm so grateful to all of you listeners, to my beautiful co-hosts that keep me balanced all the time. And I'm just so grateful. I can't say it enough. Well, with that, we hope that you all enjoy the festivities. We hope that you enjoy some time with loved ones. And we cannot wait for our next episode, where we get even more into the holiday spirits, more decorations, hopefully we'll have cute little hats and stuff.
We
But
can.
yeah, we will.
We shall.
We will. So have a great and beautiful morning, evening, afternoon. Step outside, touch grass, take a deep breath of fresh air, and take a leap with us in life. We hope you have a good one. And until the next time, bye.
Bye.